Hey, how's everybody enjoying their digital libraries being taken away by Funimation? That's good, that's good. Progress, right? Progress is great. So every once in a while I think it's important to sit and think about things and talk about things, you know what I mean? Use the perspective you gained since the last time you bothered to sit down and talk about things. But ironically, as an anime YouTuber, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about anime as a whole. Generally, I'm hyper-focused on whatever project we have going on at the time, but recently I was given a whole lot of time to sit around and think. So I played a ton of video games and I didn't watch any anime and I didn't think. But then I did think. I thought about anime and I thought about what it was like when I was younger and how it is now and how much things have changed in the past 25 years. Pretty much since the channel started, we've done this series called Anime is Punk Rock Cartoons, where we basically talk about how cool anime is and why exactly it's that cool. You know, we've been over it before. It goes past normal Western conventions, it's super violent, or it can be super horny, but it can also just be an animated show about a person being a person and what that's like. And in America, we generally don't make that kind of content. And when we do, it's generally a series that is heavily inspired by anime like Avatar, but Avatar and others haven't exactly gone quite as far as anime would. It's still very clean. However, having a 25-year perspective on anime as a Westerner, that's a lot, that's a long time. I've seen anime grow and change. I mean, I've seen a lot of things grow and change, including myself. But what's fun about anime, or like things like the YouTube videos that we make, is that they don't change. They are the way they are forever. It's a moment stuck in time. And that tells a story outside of the story itself. They are a captured piece of history. The anime coming out now will be that way in 25 years. And by that time, I mean, who knows what things are gonna be like. I definitely couldn't have imagined streaming in 2002. So today I wanna have a discussion. I wanna tell some stories. I wanna take a look at the anime industry as a whole. I wanna compare it to how it used to be and find out if it's better, worse, or just very different now. My name is Mike, this is Bonsai Pop, and let's talk about what happened to anime. It's no secret that I prefer older anime. I mean, it's hard not to when it reminds you of better times, or a cool sleepover, or waiting for Friday night to go to movie gallery and pick up something that your parents didn't know was full of boobies. But that said, I legitimately don't have any issue with the things that are coming out now, or things that have come out in the past 5 years, past 10 years, you understand what I'm saying. I like new anime, I just don't talk about it here much because we are mainly a retro anime YouTube channel. I talk about it on the Bonsai Popcast all the time, but here we like to focus on the old stuff. It also just so happens that people who like classic anime tend to be really cool and nice and older than 25, which is great. That's not to say Gen Alpha aren't Rizzlin Sigmas, but they need some time to cook before they can get up in here and really start appreciating some yacht classic anime. But honestly, if it wasn't for the true believers, we wouldn't be here. The classic anime fandom is a subculture, it's niche, and we didn't know if there was enough of them around to make this channel successful. Turns out it's one of the most underfed communities as far as YouTube content is concerned. I mean, it's just us, and well, I guess there's somebody out there that isn't talking about the newest isekai every week. But again, that's not to say that I don't like isekai. I mean, Konosuba is one of my favorite anime. Re:Zero is easily one of my favorite anime, and I keep up with the light novel. I mean, I've literally watched almost every single trash anime that's come out over the past like 8 years. Well, that's a lie. I don't even think that's possible, but it's part of the conversation, okay? But back in the apparently dinosaur age of the 90s, and even more so in the 80s, anime was really hard to come by. We'd get movies here and there like Vampire Hunter D or Akira, or some bastardized Western version of something like Speed Racer. But unless you were hunting on your own, and I mean like really hunting, that means like going to flea markets or Japanese owned stores in bigger cities, pretty much everything was curated for you. And if you think I'm exaggerating, we have some people in the Patreon who I love talking to about their old pickups. I mean, you really had to love anime with all your heart and soul back in the day. The old school underground American anime scene was so starved for content that they would buy unsubbed anime with titles that they couldn't even read just to have something new to watch. And I don't know about you, but I think that's really cool. It's great to be truly passionate about something. Everybody should have a passion, but lucky for me, when I was all pubescent and snotty, anime had already reached cable and manga VHS had been putting out movies for a while. I had enough to watch, or at least I felt like I did. But I had another passion that caused me to basically do the same things that the old school anime people did, just with CDs. So in my case, it was EPs. I did pretty much everything I could to find them. They're smaller CDs with like 4 songs, maybe sometimes a live track on them. They were usually printed in small batches, and they were really hard to find unless you had like a magazine subscription or something like that. You could also sometimes find them at flea markets if they had a decent vendor there. But you had to dig through all the Elvis and the Beatles and all that crap that they just had thousands of copies of. Local music was like that too. I'd ride my bike to the next town just so I could go to the record store and pick up $2 demos. Sometimes that was the only way to see what local bands were like, and as far as their produced content. I also collected and still do collect retro games. It's the same kind of deal. You gotta go somewhere to find places. It's a hunt. So I get that feeling, the exploration and the excitement and the honest heart that people put into finding anime just so they could have something to watch. And it is hard to think about a time where anime was virtually inaccessible in America, but I mean, kids now probably are blown away by the fact that when I was a kid, anime was locked to time slots on cable. It was either 5 to 7 p.m. on weekdays or 12 to 4 p.m. on Saturdays, and if you missed an episode, it was gone for like 2 months until they re-rolled the season back, and it's possible you could miss the same episode next time. But the reason I bring up this era and these groups of people who really hunted for their passions is because the communities were so small. At the time, if you knew somebody who liked anime as much as you did, you had a friend for life. And that was mostly because you weren't cool. Nah, you were a freak who liked sexy cartoons from that crazy Asian country we fought in World War II. And honestly, that kind of like you're a freak mentality was very similar for American comics as well. It really wasn't until Disney bought Marvel and they put out Iron Man that people were like, comics are cool, dude. Don't get me started on the 2010 to 2014 hipster era. Like, I missed junior year because I was homeless, right? So I tried to go back for a little while my senior year. I didn't stick it out, but when I showed back up at school in 2010, it was like the entire world had flipped on its head. Chicks were wearing Thor t-shirts. People were listening to metalcore like it was Eminem. All of a sudden, the things that had kept me within this really tight-knit and generally misunderstood friend group were cool and like popular and trendy. It was like opposite day. And it kind of, I don't know, at the time it kind of pissed me off. Like, why did I have to go through hiding the fact that I basically lived off of anime and comic books and Star Wars novels just to hopefully get a girlfriend, only to have all that stuff get really cool, like right as I was exiting high school? Super corny. But I mean, get this, right? The comics I grew up reading basically don't matter anymore. They're not canon because they've re-rolled the universes like 3 times between 2010 and now. When Disney bought Star Wars, they threw out all of the stories from the old books. And most of the bands I loved, if they haven't broken up by now, have just started putting out terrible rock music. I mean, look at AFI. Have you heard their new stuff? Or, I mean, Taking Back Sunday? And what's funny is the bands that haven't totally changed genres in order to stick with the trends, basically when they play live, they only play their old stuff. They just put out CDs. I don't even know why they make new music. But anime never really failed me, and it wasn't until this channel that it became my major focus. It was always something in the background that I just did, and I never really thought I was like, oh, like, I'm watching a lot of anime, until I was like, I could make a channel on anime because I've watched an absurd amount of it. You know, I was always focused on music and especially video games. Before this, I worked on a video game channel. But also what I thought was failing me before wasn't really. Everything I grew up on is still there. Black Sails in the Sunset is still an album that I own and I can listen to. The old Star Wars novels, I have them and they're still good. And the 70s and 80s, 90s, Batman, X-Men, and Daredevil comics are still just as good as they were when they came out. They never changed. That's what I was talking about in the beginning, and neither does old anime. And what's more is that all of it is at my fingertips now. I don't have to hope that the nearest Borders is going to be carrying the newest Legacy of the Force book. I don't have to take a chance going to Media Play and seeing if they carry the old All CDs. I got Amazon, I got Spotify, I got Apple Books, I got Marvel Unlimited, except I don't. I just use other sites and a couple of really powerful ad blockers. But my point is I don't really have to hunt anymore. I mean, hell, if there's an old game I want to play, I could easily emulate it, you know? Is it the same as holding it in my hand? Absolutely not, but it's there. And not having to hunt, I mean, that pretty much goes for everything. Except old Pez dispensers, for some reason those never got cool, and I just leave them alone because they're still pretty inexpensive unless you're trying to buy the old European ones from like the World War II era. This is my thing, okay? This is my thing, don't ruin it. However, with innovation comes new problems, right? All of this ease of access has actually created its own set of issues. There's no curation anymore. And if you think you don't need curation, what are you doing on YouTube? The main reason a huge amount of creators exist is curation. Yes, they may be making funny videos on this game and that game and a bunch of other different games, or this anime and that anime, and it seems random, but it's curation. They curate. That's partially why they call them influencers. And it's also why being considered an influencer is such a big responsibility, and obviously one that is often abused for money and fame. So by covering classic anime, yes, we analyze and review and talk about it for people who've already seen it and enjoy taking a bigger look into it, but we also expose that material to people who haven't seen it yet, maybe people who are younger or just missed that one. We also bring it back into the forefront of people's minds, so maybe they would want to go stream it again. So if these people enjoy the way that I talk about things, or the points that I make, or the way that I think, or the way that I look, whatever brings them to Bonsai Pop and keeps them here for the videos, the channel influences. So we use that influence to curate a collection of good anime. Notice that we very, very rarely do negative content unless it's about a really bad live action adaptation of an anime. And that's it. I mean, everything else was horrible. I want to show people cool things. And in turn, because of comments, but mostly people in the Patreon, I've been shown a lot of really cool things. And sometimes I take those things and I show them back to you. And it's good for me, right? Because I'm talking about the classic anime fandom being a subculture. And when I get people in the Patreon, in the Discord, in the community, in streams, I get to talk to them about what they like and what I like, and I get to learn. And it's also really fun for that community to have fresh, new, young people coming in and learning about classics. They get to see some of the best animated content in history for the first time. But this whole thing is an uphill battle because anime has changed. And as much as people love classic anime within this community, there's about 100 I don't talk about for every video that we do make. Because you probably wouldn't click a video about Birth from 1984 or Crying Freeman or Dragon Half. Also, I don't think we could monetize a video about Crying Freeman. But yes, anime has changed, and it's changed in a bunch of ways. First of all, it's pretty safe now. Like, you're not gonna get beat up for liking anime anymore. Most of the boomers are gonna look at you sideways, but that's because death is in the other direction and they're desperately trying to ignore that. But not only is anime safe, it's very mainstream now. It's accepted and it is extremely popular on the internet. And I mean, that's what really changed everything, right? The internet. Now we have everything we could ever want and everything we never wanted all at the same time. But that also means all the anime ever. And on that note, I'm still convinced that Netflix grabbing Attack on Titan and Sword Art Online when they did was the biggest thing to ever happen to anime in the West, at least, period. And I know some people are going to get whiplash on that because of Dragon Ball Z and Toonami, but you know, Dragon Ball Z was a shonen, it was very much aimed at boys, and the internet, while it did exist at that time, we're talking dial-up, it was slow as fuck. Dragon Ball Z was also on Cartoon Network. That was on cable. Not everybody had cable, and if you had cable, you didn't always have Cartoon Network. There were other channels that played it, but not in the same kind of syndication that Toonami did. And as far as exposing anime to America in a big way, Attack on Titan was kind of genius. It had the insane violence and gore of the 80s and 90s anime with this fresh coat of 2010's paint and a very interesting storyline that was vaguely zombie-ish in the if I see another zombie anywhere I'm gonna blow my head off era. And it simply being on Netflix made it incredibly accessible. And Sword Art Online, I mean, it was video games, it was hot anime babes, and it was an isekai. America loves isekai. But Sword Art was what it needed to be at the time. It needed to be it in order to make anime explode. I mean, my college programming professor literally wore a scout jacket to school to class every day. I mean, he was a cool guy, but it was for real going off at the time. And all of a sudden people realized that Crunchyroll exists, and all of a sudden Crunchyroll had to become significantly less sketchy than it was. And now here we are, a little over 10 years later, and there's literally too much anime to watch, and Crunchyroll has become the Disney of anime. And I never thought either of these things would be an issue. But I mean, Crunchyroll eating Funimation alone is insane. I mean, Funimation was, after manga VHS, that was what we had. But if nothing else, the internet has done two things for certain. It has given me a job where I can use my useless talent of watching way too much TV, and two, it has injected capitalism straight into our veins. I mean, don't even get me started on TikTok. Like, there is multiple new viral trends every single day. It makes me feel like I'm still sitting over here with my ice bucket challenging my neighbor Bob. It's weird. But this kind of like fast-paced, like crazy boom 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 content, very short, very quick. It's strange to me because I always liked to just kind of sit with things. And I don't know, maybe it was because I grew up poor and I grew up in a time where there wasn't a lot of access to everything. But generally what I got was what I had until the next holiday, Christmas or my birthday. So if I got a CD, I listened to that CD over and over and over, and I read the book back to front, and I learned every song on guitar, and I learned every song on bass. Same thing with any video games that I got or movies that I got. And now companies don't want you to sit with things. They want you to consume, motherfucker. But what's crazy is, even though things are being churned so quickly, I have to believe that the people that are making the anime that's coming out now love what they do as much as when they were making things like X 1999. I mean, they don't get paid shit and they work insane hours. They gotta love what they're doing. But we don't get to sit with their products. We don't get the time unless we go back and back and back to really appreciate all the effort that they put into it. Or perhaps because of production schedules, they weren't allowed to put the kind of effort that they wanted to into certain anime that come out. And even if you did want to sit with things, it's hard to when Twitter and Crunchyroll and YouTube and TikTok are desperately trying to shove the next thing up your ass before you're even done with the first episode. But speaking of X99, we really haven't had anything quite like that, or Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, or Ninja Scroll, in a really long time. And that's the other rub. Japan figured out what America likes pretty quickly. I mean, they always knew that we were really into the shonen anime, right? But apparently what we really like to consume on a daily basis is isekai, insane light novel adaptations, and boobies. And Japan likes boobs too, so that just works out for them. But when you want to make money, you give the people what they want, and you keep giving it to them forever. But what I want is weird ass anime. I want crazy OVAs and movies that come out of complete left field, and shows with innovative and strange plots that can only come from the mind of an incredibly overworked and emotionally repressed Japanese person. But I am not the people. I'm just a dude in my early 30s who talks about old school anime on the internet to like-minded people, of course. And like the one random person who shows up just to tell me I'm gay because they're more stuck in the 2000s than I am. But who I am and what I like, that's a small niche. I've always existed in small niches. And honestly, you probably have too. But I think that's one of the best things about our goal here and the community that we do have, especially over on the Patreon. I mean, those guys are the 1% of the 1% of viewers that actually come out to support, and they love anime, and not in a creepy way, you know? But when you're in your hometown and your interests are niche, I mean, it may just be you and one friend, or it may just be you alone, but you exist. And if you exist and you like niche things, other people exist that like those same niche things. That's what I decided when we decided that we were going to do this channel. It was like, I'm going to do this kind of content because if I like this stuff, somebody else out there has to like this stuff, and they're waiting for somebody to make the content that they want to see. So I make the content that I would want to see, and it worked. And you and the people who enjoy the things that you do may be far apart, or you may be a lot closer than you think. I actually have patrons that live like 30 minutes from me. When we started to grow Bonsai Pop, and especially when people started coming into the Patreon, we all realized that there's people out there like you and like me, and that there's actually a lot of them. And that's cool. It's cool to see people in our community make friends, or actually like get into romantic relationships and cross state lines or sometimes international borders to meet each other. And it's all just because they like YouTube and old anime and this dinosaur style content that we make. I mean, most of the people who started YouTube around when I started working on YouTube, so like 2014, 2015, they've retired. They can't keep up with the people that are doing daily, 10-minute videos. And I think part of the reason that I don't want to stop and really have no plans of ever stopping is because feeling isolated is really difficult. And when I can make videos like this, and when people join the Patreon or come to the streams, etc., I don't feel isolated. You know what I mean? Tyler lives on the other side of the country, literally as far away from me as he possibly can, so we don't get to see each other very much. It's mostly just me and my fiance, and she's awesome, but, we don't have a group. And it seems like now, in general, people are feeling more isolated than ever. I mean, maybe everybody at your job is a corporate shill, or maybe you live in a really small place and there's only one bar that has piss beer and constantly plays terrible country music. Maybe your friends all moved away or had kids and got married, or maybe you're the one that moved away and had kids and got married. Not having a bunch of different people to talk to about the things that you enjoy sucks. And when it comes to classic anime, I feel like a lot of it is nostalgia. Nostalgia is fun, but it also kind of is difficult, right? Like, I recently drove through my hometown and I noticed that this restaurant that I used to go to with my grandma was closed forever. It got replaced by a Starbucks. And they used to have these tie-dye pancakes that came with maple syrup, homemade ice cream on top. It was awesome. It's probably a major cause of my future cancer, but it blows. It blows that that place is gone, The town isn't the same anymore. So in that case, yeah, it sucks. I'm never gonna get my restaurant back, but art lasts forever. That means classic anime lasts forever. And I really love watching old hand-drawn anime in a 4:3 aspect ratio, some obscure half Macross, half Galaxy Express 999 mech adventure that inexplicably has a ton of gore and nudity and makes absolutely no sense, and then somebody shoots a kid with a rocket launcher. That's my shit. That's my favorite stuff. And I'm really lucky to be able to watch it whenever I want now. And more importantly, luckily I have a reason to do so every week because of the viewing parties that we have in the Discord and the Patreon. And those are basically a challenge to watch crazy stuff that nobody has ever heard of except for this one guy, Cole, who's been a patron since day one. Cole has literally watched everything. There's no beating him. He is the alpha, omega, Weebus Christ superstar. But that's what's great about community, right? Because as much as I know, there's thousands of people out there who know things I don't. I mean, I get recommendations all the time. Again, a lot of it's for new stuff, and it's generally poorly written, something that goes like, you should watch this anime. But the viewing party recommendations specifically are the best because it's just everybody trying to one-up each other with the craziest shit they can possibly find. And even though, yes, anime has changed in a lot of ways, it still feels like classic anime is a virtual bottomless barrel. We've been watching something every week for over 4 years now, and we haven't even come close to trying to hard to find new things, which is good for me and hopefully for you too, because it would be great if you liked our stuff. But really, I think the major difference between anime then and anime now is the process of streamlining. The 80s and 90s were really the wild west of Japanese animation. It seemed like anything, for any reason, no matter how crazy it was, no matter how disgusting or stupid or completely nonsensical it was, there was always a budget for it. It was truly a throw everything at the wall and see what sticks type of era. And I thrive in chaos. That's chaos. But it could also be said that perhaps, things haven't changed that much. There's just more shit to throw at the wall somehow. And we all like to say, yeah, everything is an isekai or a light novel adaptation now. But that's not really true, and I think we all know it. You just say it because that's all Giga talks about, and because it's kind of true. But in all seriousness, it's an easy generalization to make. I mean, look at all those isekai. But there's also been some absolute GOAT top tier anime that have come out within the past 10, 15 years as well. And some of them are light novel adaptations, some of them are isekai. And of course, we're always going to have amazing manga adaptations and just straight original features. Are they smashed between a billion light novel adaptations and isekai? Yes, but that's kind of part of the fun. It creates a new hunt, right? It creates a new self-curation. It results in you recommending good stuff to your friends when you find that gem mixed in with In Another World with my rubber ducky and a horny llama. So no, it's not the same. We don't have to go hunting in dirty flea markets to find unsubbed anime that we can't understand. And it's never gonna be like that again unless we band together and kill the internet. But then I wouldn't have a job. I don't know, it still might be worth it. But yes, anime is different now, but I still love it. And I think that's important. It's really important because since we started Bonsai Pop and until last October, I literally watched nothing but anime. Nothing. And I needed a break, and I didn't know I needed a break until I just broke. And then a bunch of other stupid things happened, but when we got back on track and back to work and started doing the viewing parties again and really started doing the podcasts again, I was having a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun. And when we started making videos again, when we came up with a big plan for this year, when we started talking about, the new merch and getting art and doing all of this stuff, I got really excited. I'm excited. I feel a lot better. And I know this video specifically, it's not our usual content, but I do think it's important to sit down every once in a while and talk and have a discussion. Because despite me being the person on camera and the person who is writing this, I don't have all the answers. Nobody does, and anybody who tells you that they do, they should probably be locked up somewhere. And honestly, I think we all know a narcissist like that. And if you don't, just go on Reddit. But because I don't have the answers, all I have is a bunch of questions and opinions, So let me ask you, was anime better before it was cool? Is it better now? Has the quality diminished with quantity, or did we just have better curation before? Before every single anime ever was dumped on Crunchyroll every single season. Except for the ones that are worth watching, which are generally on High Dive. High Dive, sponsor us, what's up? Was anime more original before the internet? Do you think inventive new projects aren't being picked up because it's not worth risking the money? And even if that last one is true, it doesn't change the fact that old anime is never going away and it's never going to change. Or at least I'm not going to shut up about it, so there's that. But I would like to hear your experiences. What era did you get into anime? And what do you think about it now? What do you think about all the changes that you've seen it go through over the years? And if you want to go talk about all of that with a community of people who are extremely friendly, welcoming, and like-minded, you know where to go. And in case you're totally oblivious, the Patreon, join us. And of course, thank you so much for being here with us. And next time you see this face, it's gonna be classic Bonsai Pop talking about classic anime the way it should be. But you're still not gonna get your digital libraries back from Funimation. Bye!